overwhelmed. I mean, the outpouring of love and support, the sympathy. I want to thank the Crosby family because we are our family. We've been members here since 2003. And all of the Harvard Business School Club board members and the class of 1987. Wow, I've been hearing stories. It's just been amazing. His tennis buddies, thanks for coming, and friends from the San Diego Air and Space Museum, and some of my church family. I'm so grateful. I've heard so many stories from people about Dawn that I haven't heard before. I know so many of you are shocked and not sure how to process this senseless death. Sadly, I've had more time to mourn and process Dawn. I can only be authentic because that's who I am. And truthfully, life is messy and complicated, right? Dawn and I have been together for 20 years, and the last year has been, well, messy. But my last words to him in the hospital were that I would honor the good years as his widow, and thank you for helping me give him this gift. I'm really excited to hear your stories if you want to share. I'd like to share a short tribute to Dawn, and then Pat Powers, a good friend of Dawn's and mine, will be starting the stories after me. Dawn would be proud and would be name-dropping wherever he might be, saying that a gold medalist Olympian is remembering him. So that's Pat Powers. He'll be next. Dawn was the smartest man I ever met. We became fast friends after meeting at work in New York City, and soon after we started dating. He was my best friend, my biggest supporter and encourager with my career. He was my golf buddy, and I was his life caddy. After a few years, he proposed to me. And the rest is a journey. Don prided himself. Is that Austin? Austin, will you do this for me? Okay. He prided himself on seeking out new music talent. His taste in music was edgy, bordering vulgar. But somehow I ended up loving most of everything he introduced me to. So my tribute to him is a short video. It's of my favorite photos chronicling our life with the melody of 4 songs, starting with Luckiest by Ben Folds, and then his favorite group, the Ramones, and there's no pun intended here, I Want to Be Sedated. The third song is a new group that Don sent me 2 weeks before he went into the hospital by Jukebox the Ghost. Whoever heard that? But the song was Everybody's Lonely, and he said they were quintessentially, unabashedly Queen. And they are, and it's become one of my favorite songs. The last song of the medley is a song by Lady Gaga, from the soundtrack of A Star is Born. This is my choice because I assure you, Don did not agree with Lady Gaga's politics. He would have had a really hard time even admitting to her incredible talent. The song is Always Remember Us This Way, and the part of me that is Dawn will never die. Thank you. Here's my little tribute.
Thank you. That was great. Sorry about the golf attire. In honor of Don, four of us played golf today because I knew he would want that. Also, in honor of Don, I lost $10 to Andy today, so nothing's changed. But Don was a really good friend of mine. I loved him. He was a great guy. As a matter of fact, he was like the first guy that I met here at the Crosby, or as we called it back then, the Ceglar, right? He had his hands like in everything. I mean, he was like the chairman of this and running this and everything. And but it was great for us because we needed a strong voice for this club. And Don represented the membership quite well here. And he'd take things up with management and let them know. And he was, opinionated. I mean, he had a strong view on everything. I think the thing I loved about him most, and what I'm going to miss most, is his laugh, right? I mean, he had a great laugh. He was the type of person that, you'd walk up to and he'd say stupid stuff just to hear him laugh. And, I think the greatest thing about him was he would walk on the driving range and he would pick up a conversation right where he had it with you the very last time you talked to him. And he'd, hey, see that email I sent you? And he'd just get into this big long discussion with you. And he was great about that. But, he was, I don't know, I mean, he was a great guy and everything, but God, he had one fault, one serious fault. And, he's not here to defend himself with this. He's a great guy, but the one thing that Don couldn't do was he couldn't form an opinion about things, right? I mean, if you talked about the Democrats, that was it. He would rail on you for that. But no, he was a good friend. And when I first joined here, he was one of the first guys. And I think for the next 8 or 9 years, we played golf almost every morning, probably like 4 to 5 weeks out of it, or 4 to 5 days out of the week. And got to know him, and just a really fun guy. And Carol Ann, I know the last year might have been tough, but I can tell you right now, he loved you a lot. He talked about you, and I know things might have been a little bit different then, but he had a lot of love for you, and he had a lot of love for us. And deep down, he was a very good guy and a very good friend, and he had family, friends, Carol Ann. We'll miss him. We loved him. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Miro Kopik. I'm a section mate of Don's from Harvard Business School, and I do want to have a little shout out to my section mate, Kate Williams, and we have section mates in the back who might say a few words later. What can I say? Except, I really want to let everyone know that, by the way, Carol Ann, great choice of the Lady Gaga song. I don't care what Don would think, excellent choice. Except, I was amazed when we notified our section that Don had passed. The outpouring of love that we got from Section B. When I sent the section the information about the celebration of life today, I received calls, I received emails, I received things that people would say to me about Don that I really can't repeat today. But it clearly impacted a lot of people's lives, and often for the better. As a fellow Section D'er, I've known Don over 30 years. And from living in the same dorm stairwell, he lived on the top floor, I lived near the front door, so that wasn't good. We were in the same section. He sat at the sky deck, I was much lower. So Don lived life at the top. We always bonded being from Southern California. We kind of try to compete who came from the wrong side of the tracks more often than the other. We both had Slavic roots, and we both loved being part of Harvard Business School. In class, and a lot of people might have some things to say about him in class, but he was funny. He had some really memorable impressions, which cannot be repeated or not politically correct today. And occasionally he was pretty impertinent. But he was a great friend, and he had a ready smile and could tell stories, as most of you can attest, like nobody's business. In fact, I've been sworn to secrecy and had to sign an NDA, or else I could really blackmail a lot of people, probably in this room and in town. Now, our lives crossed when I moved back to San Diego in about 2000, and a few years later, Don and Carol Ann moved to San Diego as well. But the only difference was that I was working for a living and Don was retired. And boy, was he retired. You know, he loved his golf and would golf daily, sometimes 2 rounds, right? And at his 50th birthday party, I'll never forget, he was talking about the 100 rounds of golf he plays every year. And I looked at him and I said, Don, you play more golf in 1 week than I've played for the last decade. So, you know, and as the local Harvard Business School Alumni Club president, I got Don to join the board and really put him to work. And it was truly the only time I ever saw Don actually do work. And he complained bitterly along the way, but I knew he loved it because he loved being part of this community. And a couple of funny stories. When our club became a 501c3, Don was our treasurer. And he filled the forms and he filed taxes at the state and federal government levels. And we heard about it at every freaking board meeting for over 2 years. And this is even after we were awarded the 501c3 designation a year prior. So it kind of carried over. And but when we had our first and only Harvard Business School Alumni Club golf tournament here at the Crosby, Don owned it. He was one of the primary organizers, and we raised so much money that it helped the club really go into the black. He was a gracious host, he was a funny commentator, he was a wonderful MC, and he was the club pro. And no one can forget, at least the Harvard Business School Alumni Association here in San Diego, the wonderful holiday parties that Don and Carol Ann threw several times over and extraordinarily memorable. In the last 2 years, Don had picked up tennis because he played in college. Very few would not believe this, but our tennis buddies over here do know that. And we would have a weekly doubles game. And I will tell you one very important thing. Never play net when Don is at the net, because I can tell you I have welts and bruises to this day that I can't get rid of. So Don was not only a fierce competitor, but an equally fierce friend, and I'm going to miss him. I'd also like to read a couple of comments from section mates who sent things, and they really asked us to read them on their behalf. One is for our classmates from Mike McAndrews, who's a very dear friend of Don's, and also from Long Beach. And Mike Reed says, you know, Don was the first student I met at HBS. After picking up my dorm room key, I parked my car and started carrying things into my room. Don was also in Hamilton Hall, where we all lived, and happened to be walking by. He went out of his way to introduce himself and immediately started helping me move everything upstairs. He made me feel welcome and became the start of a lifelong friendship. It also demonstrated the kindness and warmth that was a big part of Don's character. During our 2 years at Harvard Business School, Don and I hung out often, particularly remembering playing video games. Did anyone know that Don played video games? Into the wee hours of the morning instead of doing cases, so for all of you. And talking about family, friends, school, and future ambitions. Several of us enjoyed playing golf, and the 4 of us went on a pair of memorable golf adventures together. Don was an outstanding athlete, excelling in multiple sports. Caroline and Don visited Mari and I at our home in Pennsylvania many years ago when our kids were little, and we had a wonderful time. I had the opportunity to visit Don in San Diego several days earlier this year. It was truly heartbreaking to see firsthand how his health had deteriorated. But despite his health issues, he was still the same funny, kind, and sensitive man I had come to know back in 1985. We talked about everything: family, friends, careers, our plans for the future. It was unfortunately the last time I saw Don. Don was a big man, big in stature, of course, but he also had a big personality and a big zest for life. Most importantly, however, Don was my friend. I will miss him. And the last one I'd like to read is from a friend of ours in our section who is kind of the class clown. His name was Marty Guyrie. And Marty took us a humorous but a little serious note in that he said, I wanted to share some of my memories of our good friend Don. We can probably count on one hand the number of men and women from Don's neighborhood in Long Beach who made it all the way to HBS. As I got to know Don at HBS, probably over a few drinks at the boathouse, I could tell that he was very proud of this fact. He was really proud to be part of the Harvard community. The Harvard Coop can attest to this as well. I think Don may have been the Coop's largest customer. The Harvard mug, the Harvard sweater, the Harvard chair, Don had it all. And I'm sure those who visited him at the house, he had a stash in a whole room for that. After graduation, we both ended up in Southern California. I recall with a smile my weekend visits to Newport Beach to see Don and Alan Damon, who's standing in the back of the room over there. Wave hi, Alan. But the most memorable time in California may have been the night I invited Don to attend a 1988 playoff game between the Lakers and the Utah Jazz at the Forum. We sat 2 rows behind the Lakers bench and watched Magic, Kareem, and Coach Pat Riley eke out an incredibly exciting 1-point win. It was showtime at its best. We sat across from Jack Nicholson and next to the actress Susan Anton, who was a big deal back then. We sang I Love LA with Randy Newman and the sold out LA crowd. For 2 guys fresh out of business school, it was an awesome night and a great memory. Maybe a little superficial, but hey, we were young and in Los Angeles. Don and I each ended up back on the East Coast. While there, we played some golf together. Now, Don was in a different league than me when it comes to golf. However, in spite of our gap in skills, Don always made me feel welcome on the course with him and made the round a good time. It was in New York where Don achieved tremendous business success. As a friend, it was great to be a witness to that. It was also New York that Don and Carol Ann started dating. I was there to see the relationship develop and flourish. I always thought that Don's most remarkable achievement was his marriage to Carol Ann. And with all of his birdies and pars on the golf course, I think Don knew that he hit the best shot of his life with Carol Ann. Ultimately, the 2 of them had a good sense to leave those of us on the East Coast and move back to California and make Rancho Santa Fe their home. Not bad for someone from Long Beach. Don, I'll miss you, buddy. Thank you for the memories. You made my life a better one, Marty. All right, thank you very much.
Hi, for those of you that don't know, I'm Andy Barnes, and one of the very early Crosby members here. So I met Don and Carol Ann when they joined the club.
Closer to the mic.
And speaking of Harvard, I saw Don in the hospital when he was in the emergency room just 3-4 weeks ago, and he was in a really bad way there, very weak and in bad condition. And the doctor, young doctor, was talking to him when I walked in, and it was explaining something to him, and the doctor said to Don, I know you'll understand that you're a really smart guy. I know you have an MBA. And Don said, Harvard. So that was pretty typical for Don. Anyway, Pat Powers had sort of alluded to this, but Don was really instrumental in getting competitive golf and the men's organization going here in the Crosby. He was the first chairman of the men's golf committee and served in that capacity for a number of years. He actually helped transform the clam bake, which is our big annual member guest. The format of that, it started out as kind of an eclectic thing, and he switched to the 5-9 hole match play matches that we have now that I think everybody really likes. That was really his doing. He also served as captain of our interclub team play event for many years, up until the last year or so. And he with Doug Zerbel really got the Harry Lillis Cup going, which is our internal Ryder Cup event. Don's a long-time captain there, opposite Doug Zerbel. So a lot of the stuff we do here in golf is really due to Don's input. He's also was a very good golfer too, as most of you know. He won our club championship twice, I believe. He won the clam bake once. With Steve Streebig, he won a number of members. He won green jacket several times. I think he has several of those jackets in his closet there. So, and he and Carol Ann seemed to always be winning couples events over the years as well. So he had a lot of success there. He was probably a +1 handicap at his best. I'm sure I played more golf with Don than anyone else over the years. We played hundreds of rounds. We were both retired and played 5, maybe 6 times a week. And there's no formal accounting here, but I think I probably close to breaking even with him, which I consider pretty significant. And he had his idiosyncrasies as a golfer. He was really into the golf clubs, and I don't know how many putters he had, but he had barrels of putters, more than 100, maybe 200 putters.
Like 350.
350, I don't know what the number was, but he'd periodically bring out a new putter because he was playing well. And the one thing I remember, I've never seen this before or since, he was putting for a birdie on the 12th green here. It was maybe an 8 or 10 foot putt. And he actually double hit the putt, hit the ball, hit it again while it was still moving, and it went in the darn hole. And so instead of getting a birdie, of course, it was only a par, but I don't know how he did that. And if you played with Don, he played very quickly, which was always nice, and it was amazing because he was invariably texting while golfing. Between every shot, he was either sending a text to Carol Ann or receiving a text or checking his emails or whatever, but he still seemed to get around pretty quickly. And, that was amazing. He was also frugal by nature, which I can relate to because I'm sort of that way myself, but he was always scavenging for new golf clubs at the Golf Mart in there, not new clubs, but clubs in their used club bin. And he'd come in and tell us in the morning, hey, I just got this new hybrid for $12, and how that was going to improve his game. And he also was into buying new drivers on a periodic basis. And each driver, of course, he would say, well, this one I've been hitting 10 or 15 yards farther than my last driver. Well, if that was true, he'd be hitting 500-yard drives. And he never did that, of course. So, anyway, I have a lot of memories from Don. And those of you that know him or spend any time with him, he knew a lot about a lot of different subjects. Very well read, very opinionated. And, while he was occasionally wrong, he was never in doubt.
That's true. That's true.
Well, good afternoon. My name's Edward Hughes. I've known Don for about 16 years when I moved here to San Diego. We went to the same business school, and you probably know the name of it by now. We don't need to use a Don and brag about it, but we've been on the board together for the last 14 years. And it's been great kind of knowing him, and so I thought I'd say, when I think about Don, what is it I think about? And so, I wrote down a few words. So, and a couple of little stories to go with it. So, to me, Don's always a competitor. Even if it's a small game, I remember one round we were playing, this before I joined the Crosby, I was playing with Jim Kidrick, who's here somewhere, Jim, the CEO of San Diego Aerospace Museum. And we're one out on the round. And we're playing the 7th hole, and I'd hit a decent drive, and going down the right-hand side, had about 185 yards in. For those of you who know, the wind's in your face, the green's a little uphill. So I thought I'm going to play about 195 yards. What's that?
It went live.
He's back. So anyway, so I take a forehand out, hit this just great shot. The thing's flying right to the green. I look over to Jim in my car and I go, we got this one. Anyway, lo and behold, the ball lands about 15 yards short. I'm like, what happened? And Jim's like, I don't know. So I look at Don, and Don goes, whatever number you think it was, he goes 15 yards, you have to hit it 15 yards further. And he just drives off with a big smile and I'm like, Don, it's not that big a competition. So Don also was surprising, and it's come out in some of the talks about his knowledge. He had a tremendous knowledge of trivia. But at one of the parties we were at, Dawn, my fiance, and he start talking about music, and they start talking about rap music. And the next thing I know, the two of them are rapping the whole Boys in the Hood thing, the whole hands going like this. And I'm looking at him saying, how does some 6'5" white dude living in Seattle know the gangster rap? So it was something like, you're straight out of Compton, and he's I was trying to be credible with him at the time because that's all I knew about gangster rap. Don was very generous. He was great with the club, as Miro said. He hosted, and Caroline hosted some wonderful parties. but they had this strange habit of asking me to stand on the table to talk to people. And I don't know whether this was Don putting me down because he's 6'5" and I'm 5'8". It's kind of like, it's a lot, but anyway, I'd stand on the island there and say a few words, so we were very generous. Don was also a skeptic that you could convert into a believer. And so I remember at one board meeting, Michael and I put together a proposal for the board to say we want to do these management development programs. And it was beautifully articulated, well thought out, etc. And at the end of it, Don basically pours cold water and says, no, we can't trash the brand, we're not ready, we don't know we can do this. We're like, really? So we kind of agreed we'd pilot the program. Anyway, lo and behold, the program was a great success. And he became a believer. And as you saw in some of these photographs, he became a moderator, and every year Caroline would come down and look at Don teaching. And it was fantastic, it was great. He became one of our biggest supporters, even though he was a bit of a skeptic. Next thing, he was a creature of habit. So again, before I joined the Crosby, I'm playing with him, I'm playing on the 6th green, and so some of you know it. If you don't know it, it's kind of got a big slope, and somebody buried a big elephant right in the middle of the thing. And I'm looking at the putt, and I'm saying, I think it's going to go a little bit to the right. And Don says, no, it's going to go to the left. I say, are you sure? He goes, I've played this hole 2,700 times. Of course I have. I'm like, who's played a golf course 2,700 times? So, and he was the treasurer of our club. And we had just done a program with Qualcomm. And we were expecting a check from them, and it was probably the biggest check we've ever had by a factor of 3. And they told me they'd mailed it. So I texted him and said, this is on a Wednesday. I said, did you get the check? He said, no. That's all they sent back. So I texted him on Thursday. I said, did you get the check? No. I said, that's strange because they said they mailed it. On Friday, did you get the check? No. So I called him up and said, Don, are you sure you haven't got the check? He goes, look, I only go down the mailbox on Tuesdays. So of course I didn't have the check. So Don was a pretty curious guy. So he had a great passion for aviation, and a couple of years ago, a small group of us had the good fortune to fly out on a Navy plane to the USS Nimitz, an aircraft carrier, about 160 miles off the coast of San Diego. And you do the whole tail hook landing and everything else, walk around. And Don was like a kid in the candy store. He loved aviation and loved, seeing all this fantastic technology. And the whole time he was walking around, just his eyes were lit up. It was great to see. For me personally, I enjoyed it quite a bit because if you've ever been on a Navy ship, the corridors are pretty tight and they're low. So every time I walk through no problem, boom, right on the top. So I'm like, this is getting you back to being 6'5". But he says it was one of the greatest experiences of his life. I found Don always very intelligent, but not necessarily tech savvy. So somebody said he was checking emails. Well, we had a board meeting once, and I'd say it was an important meeting, we had to vote on something, and I'd sent out an email to the board and with a bunch of documents, please read this beforehand. So anyways, it became apparent in the meeting that Don hadn't read the documents by the questions he's asking. So I looked at him and said, did you not get the email? He picks up his phone and he goes, email? He goes, I got 14,000 unread emails. I don't have time for email. Thanks for being prepared there, Don. Some of you know I was in the golf business for a while, and Don always had a very sharp wit. Once I was up at the house at the holiday party, and if you've been there, it's a big house, there's a lot of doors. And I'm looking for the restaurant. So anyway, I opened the wrong door. I opened the door into the garage. And there was hundreds, if not thousands, of clubs in front of me. It was like the Arlington National Cemetery of golf clubs. So I look at it, so I go back and I find Don, and I said, Don, why do you have so many clubs? And he looks me straight in the face, he goes, well, if you'd made better clubs, I wouldn't need so many. I'm like, all right. So we saw Don a few weeks ago, 2 months ago, at his 58th dinner, and 50th birthday dinner, and he didn't look well, which was very sad. But he still had a great sense of humor. And Dawn had gone out and got him a custom T-shirt that basically said, "Straight out of Seattle." And you've never seen the guy smile bigger. He loved that. So I'm always going to remember that smile. We'll miss him as a friend and as a colleague. Without Don, we wouldn't be living here in the Crosby. We wouldn't be members of the club. Without Don, the club wouldn't be as strong as it is. So on behalf of the board of directors of the HBS Club of San Diego, we're going to make a donation to his favorite charity, the San Diego Air and Space Museum. So we're going to miss you, Don. Godspeed.
And my name is Emily Cole. Don't know a whole lot of you, know most of the HBSers. That's what we call you guys at home. But definitely thankful for the hospitality that you all have shown me over the years. But I'm standing here to represent Amanda Montgomery, who can't be here tonight. And I've never seen her as torn up as she has been about this. Don and Carol Ann meant so much to her, to me, and to us. And truly, they provided us with a sanctuary when the rest of the world wouldn't seem to leave us alone. So I'd like to read these words on behalf of Amanda in memory of Don. I'm sorry I can't be there in person with you all to celebrate the life of a rare and special soul. Don Ceglar was my friend of 18 years. I first met Don and Carol Ann in 2004. We were all new to San Diego, and like good HBSers, Don and I dutifully reported to Miro, our then fearless HBS Club president, to join the board. Both Don and Carol Ann soon became dear friends, and their home a sanctuary on the hill. Through some dark years personally, I considered Don one of my closest friends. He was a confidant and a source of strength and encouragement. He was always in my corner, and I am forever grateful to him for that. One of the things I'll remember most about Don is his laugh and cheeky grin. I will remember his warm smile and towering hugs. He was talented, brilliant, and, as previously mentioned, full of trivia. You all know Don was an outstanding golfer, but his fierce competitive nature spanned beyond the golf course. Here's a little story I like to tell that is quintessential Don, as I knew and loved him. I think my son William was all of 6 or 7 at the time and had become quite a little chess player. Over for dinner one night, Don very kindly offered to play chess with William. Carol Ann and I thought, oh, isn't that so sweet? When we finally called them for dinner, Don said they would be there shortly. After the 3rd or 4th summons, Don barked, "In a minute." And then finally, "Checkmate, good game, Will." I remember this. As they approached the table, Will's eyes filled up with tears. Don, on the other hand, had that signature smile on his face. He consoled Will with the fact that he had previously been some grand chess poobah champion back in his younger days. Of course he was. That's the Don I will remember, vibrant and healthy and happy. I'll hear his laugh, and it will make me laugh. Cheers, old friend, and cheers to all of you who were a part of Don's journey and celebrated life.
Bring back some memories and things I hadn't thought about for a while. And my name is Alan Damon. I was Don's section mate in our first year of business school together, and we actually sat together up in the sky deck along with Lisa, who was in the back there, and then we roomed together for 2 years in Promontory Point in Newport Beach as we both were beginning our careers after business school. And hearing some of the stories tonight, I'm reminded of walking into Don's room with your roommates and seeing this was early days, you see 40 putters going around the perimeter. I'd never seen anything like that, and obviously this was the beginning of a habit that he And I'd forgotten about our chess games. But one thing that many of you may not know in Don's resume is that there were a couple of startups in there in Southern California. I would often stop by his office after work, and we would start eating sometimes at lunch, and we would start playing a game of chess. And he did have that intensity because a call would come in for him, a conference call, and he would have it rescheduled not to interrupt the chess. But as all you can appreciate, It's impossible for me to think of Don without smiling. His good humor, his irreverence, his penetrating intellect were always present, and he was just so much fun to be with. Don had a lot of success in his short life. He was a partner at Weispeck and Greer. He willed and worked himself into becoming a scratch golfer, and his lifelong devotion to the teams of Cleveland eventually bore fruit. But Don really hit his full stride when he met and married Carol Ann. Separately, I knew both Don and Carol Ann's boss in San Francisco, Phil Greer, and talking about Carol Ann one day, he said, "You know, she's really good at her job, and she's so pretty too." Don's really lucky. Yes, he was. I've always had a thing for great opening lines in novels, something that Don thought was really lame. One of my favorites is from Scaramouche, and it captured Don perfectly. He was born with the gift of laughter and a sense that the world was mad. Aloha, my friend. Miss you all.
With Don quite a while. Everything Andy said just about was perfectly true. Let me clarify one thing. When we were in the ICU to see him last time, he actually phrased it this way. Harvard. So you might wonder how, I ever got together with him, because I'm from West Virginia. And I'm a bleeding heart liberal, and he's a right-wing wacko. I was trying to calculate. I think we played about 1,600 rounds together over the years. So I've gotten to know him quite well, and I think every testimony you've heard is right on. I have a few more. We met in May of 2003. That's when that month we both joined the Crosby, so I've known him for 15 years or so. And I didn't know him at the beginning, but then I heard he made a hole-in-one on number 7 a few days after he started playing. And I thought, this guy must be pretty good. Then I noticed he was a lot taller than everyone else. And, I didn't know him very well, but then we played golf a couple of rounds, and one of the things that attracted, I think, that helped get us together was that he was in the beginning of his life, he spent a lot of impressionable childhood years in Ohio. He lived in Akron, which always reminded me was the tire center of the world. And I went to OSU, Ohio State. We were big Buckeye fans. So, but here I am, I was in the Navy, and I went through college. I was on the faculty at the University of California in neuroscience. Here's this guy who's so infected with the concept of money, capitalism. How would we get together? But we had this wit. He has this wit that I have, this nasty wit. And I noticed one thing. He's a very clever guy, very witty, and he was always very fast in his retorts. So I would make a joke or say something, and he would always carry that joke further down the anatomy than is in polite society. It was amazing. And I said, God, where did that come out of your mouth? And he had these names for golf shots. We were on number 7, and some of you don't play golf, but when you hit the ball incorrectly, like we call it thin, or you skull it, you're hitting the ball in the middle of the ball with your club, and it just skips along the ground. It's a terrible shot. And I hit a ball like that, and it rolled up on the green within 2 feet of the pin. And he says, "Well, that's a sister-in-law." What do you mean? He said, "You should never have gotten anywhere near that hole." This is Don. You guys know Don. And these sayings that he threw in all the time that he learned, he said on Wall Street when he was a hedge fund manager. And he would say, "Well, if you're not cheating, you're not trying." Or he would say things like, he'd make a good putt, and he would say, "Good for you." And it took me years before he admitted that, well, good for you is like GFY, that means go F yourself. those years hearing that. And, you know, somebody has commented that, well, he also said that, you know, if I told you what I've done at Wall Street, I'd have to kill you. So I don't know exactly what he meant because I'm not a money person at all. But somebody mentioned that he had a real good memory for a lot of different things. And one of the things is, you know, college team mascots. You know, I was thinking to myself, why would I want to cloud my brain with all that stuff? But he was impressive. I mean, he went to, he lived in Akron, so he knew about Zippy. Now, Zippy is a kangaroo. It's the mascot of the University of Akron. And it's supposed to be female, but he always said no, it was male. So I don't know why he said that. But he knew my alma mater, which really impressed me. You know, obviously, we know about Brutus, Buckeye. That's the mascot of Ohio State. But then he went into big depth. He knew about the West Virginia Mountaineers. You've probably heard of those. And, you know, there's this, Georgia Tech is the Yellow Jackets. And he was talking about that one day. He said, you know, it's the same as your other alma mater, West Virginia State University. They're the Yellow Jackets. And I'm like, how would you know that? There's 5,000 students there. It was very impressive. He knew about the, you know, the Stanford mascot, the tree. I didn't know that. Did you know that? Did you know that, Andy?
Yes, I did know that.
Andy got his MBA at Stanford. And also the Purdue Pete. This is this guy with a hammer. I don't know if you've ever seen him. Which we don't like Purdue because they beat OSU this year. And, you know, Cal, the Oski, the bear, you know, he knew that. I don't know how many of you went to UC Berkeley. You're mostly businessmen. You probably didn't do that. And Patrick the Patriot. This is the Dallas Baptist Western University. So anyway, that's how, you know, those are some of the things. And then Carol Ann sent me this. This is from a guy,
Mike Fox.
Mike Fox, sorry. He's was he a Wall Street guy in New York?
Yeah.
Okay. So he, you know, when I read this,
But please don't read number 2.
I'll use an acronym.
Good for you.
Yeah, you know, I read through this and I just shook my head and I can attest to almost all this kind of stuff. You know, when he used this term to describe a satisfactory golf shot that could have been executed better, he called that's not awful. and then, you know, I'll have to use an acronym here. Because polite society, you probably, but the acronym is BJ. When somebody was talking to him about working at a job that, you know, that was a miserable job, but he was holding on to it. And Don said, "Man, can get through a day without a BJ, but not without a really good, rationalization." That's a man thing. Also, he had this proverb that he used before attempting a really difficult shot like Eric Crosby. He said, this is, I'm not sure this is technically possible. No, wait a minute. It was, this is harder than Chinese arithmetic. And his description of me and other California liberals, and also he said always all the people in Boston. He says, I'm not sure this is technically possible, but they're bigger assholes than New Yorkers. Another one he said, and I remember that when I was growing up, but his way of saying that shit happens is feces occurs. A polite version of that. And then, you know, if you're betting against him, and he was very competitive. Several people mentioned that. And you got to put a putt that's about 4 feet. And a lot of these guys, you decide that's good. But he's trying to make money off of you. So he would just say, No, there's still some shit in that diaper. You heard that. And then his memory of songs. And anytime he'd hear anything, he would say, "Do you know who sings this?" So immediately after one or two beats of some hit wonder from the 80s, he'd often quiz you on the band's name, origin, food allergies, and sometimes political and sexual orientation. His knowledge of trivia rivaled Sheldon Cooper. And then, they called his garage Nevada Don's because I've seen these putters. I mean, every time he would hit a bad drive on the golf course, the next day he'd show up with a new putter. And one of his favorite movies was Glengarry Glen Ross. And let's see, he had an incredibly diverse and unique repertoire of funny songs from the years, like Frank Zappa and Bloodhound Gang were examples. When seeing a friend make coffee, he might ask that friend if he was a closer. Because you remember one of the quotes was, "Put that coffee down, you're not a closer." And then he had a bunch of poetic golf terms like whiff and poof, which is a golf shot that flies a relatively short distance and to the right. A Thurman Munson, dead yank, which is a shot that flies very far and very wide left. And bye-bye, he said that to me so many times when you hit a putt, he starts to roll. And if it gets close to rolling off the green, he'll say, "Would you like to borrow my wedge after your putt?" He said that a lot to me, Andy. And then another one was Breaks Like the Wind, which is a putt that must cross a noticeably steep slope. So these are sayings from this guy in New York who I've not met, but I can say that that's Don. That's about all I have to say.
I'm supposed to read this. Susan and Ken Watson. Ken asked his lovely wife Susan if Susan would ask my husband Doug if he would read this. So he said, "Sure, I'll read it." And as Carol Ann started the celebration, I thought maybe I should turn around and look at Doug. And I looked at him and I said, "Do you want me to read it?" And he goes, "Yeah." So if you know Doug, he's a big teddy bear. So anyway, I'm honored to read this on behalf of Susan and Ken Watson. Ken and I joined the Crosby as national members almost 15 years ago. Don and Carol Ann were among the first people we met. They were both very welcoming, and we enjoyed golfing and socializing with them when we were in town for many years. 5 years ago, our children and 2 grandchildren were coming to our home for Christmas. Wanting to do something special, we asked Don if we could convince him to stop by Christmas morning. As it turned out, we did not need to convince him, as he readily agreed to show up as Santa and surprise a 2- and 3-year-old. As we are having breakfast, a booming ho 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 came from the front of the house. Children and adults were absolutely startled. In a moment, Santa, Don, and his helper, Carol Ann, came around the corner carrying a new bike and a bag of gifts. Our grandsons, Colton and Oliver, were silent and in awe as they realized Santa had actually come to our home just for them. Timidly, the 4-year-old approached Santa and said, "I knew you would come." They wanted to watch Santa go back up the chimney. But he assured them that the magic would be gone if they watched. So Santa and helper disappeared around the corner. The next year, Santa and his helper came again. This is the Don Ceglar we will choose to remember. Someone who brought a lot of joy to our home Christmas morning. Love, Susan and Ken Watson.
Hello everyone, my name is Lisa, and Alan and I sat on either side of Dawn at Harvard Business School. Alan spoke earlier. At business school, a very sizable part of our grades was classroom participation, and I was terrified of speaking up. But it was Dawn, more so than anyone else, who encouraged me and supported me. So it's fitting that I'm here tonight in front of all of you, thanking him. But as hard as I have tried, I cannot remember any specific stories about Don. When I think about him, I don't think about a story. I think about an essence, a solid, stable presence, always on my right side, because that's where he sat next to me. Since our business school section found out about Don's passing, there has been an incredible chain of emails. And I read every email, I studied every email, trying, hoping that it would spark a memory. No such luck. But there was one email that really stuck in my mind. Our section mate, Dubbing, said, "Life is an attitude." When I first read that, I thought it was really strange because to me, life is active, life is dynamic. Life is something you do, and attitude is something that you are. But I knew there was meaning in it, so I kept on turning it over and over again in my mind. And finally, a few days later, a breakthrough. To me, Don is an attitude. And that really resonates with me because attitudes persist. They don't go away. They're very powerful. And in Don's case, that unique combination of generosity, empathy, discipline, and humor is one that's going to be hard to match. And on this Giving Tuesday, which at the core of Giving Tuesday is about helping other people, I can't think of a better person to be celebrated than Don. Carol Ann, and to Don's family, on behalf of Section D, our deepest condolences. Thank you for hosting us today and giving us time to remember, to laugh, and to ultimately be grateful for knowing Don. Thank you.
Hi friends, I'm Hunter, and Carol Ann asked me to end the evening with the last tribute to Don because I actually have 3 gold medals, and since that's one of Don's claim to fame. I don't know if you knew that. Actually, the real reason is I graduated at the top of the class of Section 8 as an HBSer. So welcome, friend. But in all seriousness, my wife Shelby and I, our claim to fame is that we were Don's first Christians that he liked, and that's true, and I think that's the truth. And it was quite an accomplishment, actually, one that we're proud of. And you can tell from this accent that I grew up in Arkansas, and so Christians get a bad rap, and folks from Arkansas get an even worse rap. And so when we first met Don, we were trying to downplay the fact that I was from Arkansas, and I was trying to hide this accent, but it didn't work too well. So what I had to do was that just elevate Shelby, because Shelby actually did graduate from Harvard, and so Don, of course, loved that about her, and loved her, and so Shelby was the key to Don's heart, and that's the truth. And I wanted to share a few lessons that I learned from Don. He really did change my life in several ways, and then wanted to share a few words of just hope and encouragement for all of us. But the first lesson that I learned from both Don and Carol Ann is that if you use the gifts and strengths that God gives you, whatever those gifts and strengths are, we all have some of them. If you make space in your life to use those to encourage and strengthen others, you can actually change the course of someone else's life, even in one conversation. Shelby and I moved here to San Diego about 6 years ago, and Don and Carol Ann were one of the reasons that we moved here. My wife's parents, Shelby's parents, Rick and Robin, started spending winters out here a few years before that, and so we would come out to visit them for the holidays, and And I'll never forget meeting Don and Caroline in their house for the first time. They welcomed us. They used their gift of hospitality to welcome us not only into their home, but into their family. And they made us feel like we actually had people out in this part of the country that loved us. And so 6 years ago, I just finished graduate school for theology, and we were debating on whether to move here or to move to a different part of the U.S. or even a different part of the world. And prior to that, Shelby and I spent the last 11 years far away from our family. And it wasn't easy moving to new cities in the East Coast where we didn't know anyone, and so we really felt like it would be a good decision for us to move to a place where we had family and where we had people that loved us. And so truly, when we made the decision to come here, it wasn't only because there was a wonderful church that's called Redeemer that's just about 5 minutes away from where Rick and Robin live, but we had Don and Caroline in mind as people that would make this a great place for us. And so he used the gift of hospitality to welcome us into his home and into his family, and not just Shelby and me, but a few months after we moved here, we had a little baby, and Ryder's running around here somewhere, and from the time he was born, every single week, Don and Caroline, at least Caroline, loved on Ryder and invested in his life and taught him things about art and music that Shelby and I couldn't teach them, and they have invested a lot into Ryder's life, and we're so thankful. So not only have they shown us the gift of hospitality and loved on us and strengthened us through love and welcoming us into their family, Don also used his intellect and his wisdom to strengthen us and guide us in other ways too. So Shelby is like Don, super brilliant, and she works for an organization one of the greatest organizations in the world actually, that works in developing countries to provide things like clean water and medicine for those who don't have access to that. And just in the last 5 years, her organization has gone through 2 massive reorganizations where Shelby was either going to have to stop working at this job that she loved, or she was going to have to go through a very competitive process to try and apply for a promotion twice. And so the very first person that we called was Don, for Shelby to get advice on how to go through the interview process and to get coaching and career advice, and his coaching was spot on. It was perfect. And because of that, she actually got both of the promotions, and she's still working with World Vision today. And not only did Don spend a few minutes to give advice, he would spend hours. And he said, hey, call anytime that you want. And it wasn't just for career. I grew up without a dad, and so there were and still are lots of areas where I'm deficient, and I don't know how to be a good dad, and how to be a good husband, and how to be the leader that I want to be. And just one of those deficiencies was just in the area of like being a wise financial steward. And so Don taught me basic things like how to save and how to provide for my family, and how to think about our future in a wise way, and so many other things where in just one conversation he guided us in ways that truly have changed the trajectory of our lives, and we're here because of them. And so I wanted to encourage you with that, actually, because you have gifts and you have strengths as well, and if you remember Don, as you remember Don, I hope that you'll remember that you can use your gifts if you'll just make yourself available, even if it's one conversation, to use that gift to strengthen someone who could really use help. And you never know what that might do. It might change someone's family. Our boy writer only refers to Caroline and Don as Auntie and Uncle. You may actually give someone's kids an auntie and an uncle that they didn't have. And so those were some of the lessons that Don taught me with his life. I wanted to close with just 2 lessons that he taught me in his death, and that I hope might encourage you. And the first of those is that life is so brief. The brevity of life has seemed more real to me than ever in light of Don's tragic death at such a young age. And I think that none of us really know how many more days we have. And it could be one day, it could be a year. Maybe we'll all live to be 100, and that would be great. But even if we live to be 100, it's still so brief. And I think if we can live each day through the lens of our last day, I think that we'll gain a wisdom that will change us. Like, we'll gain a wisdom that can guide how we invest each day. And I think maybe if we do that, we'll start to make more time in our busy schedules to invest in relationships, and to love people well, and to welcome them into our homes, and to welcome their kids into your family. All the ways that Don uses his gifts to bless me and show me in my year. And so life is so brief. And just the last thing that Don taught me in his death is that what we hope in really matters. And I don't know where you find your hope. It seems like every day the world is full of craziness, and there's not a lot to hope in it. It feels like, and a lot of things in this life, I'm realizing, and Don again taught me this in his death. The things in this world aren't always worth placing your hope in. Whether it's your wealth, or your physical fitness, or your youthfulness, your health, your career, your GPA in Section 8, or whatever, or even loved ones, or even your family. Those things can't actually hold the weight of our hope, because they were never meant to fully satisfy us, and they're not permanent. None of those things are lasting. Nothing in this world actually will last forever. And so eventually those things that we hope in will crush us. And so as I've thought about that, I wanted to encourage you. I know we all come from different perspectives, and different faith perspectives, and different philosophies on life. And I work at a church. I'm a pastor, so it's no surprise that my perspective is shaped by Scripture, and so I just wanted to share where I find hope, and maybe that could encourage you as well. Not only will things in this life fade away, but they also have the power to influence your life after this world. And I told Don this, and the first time I met him, I loved talking with Don, and because he was so smart, and I loved dialoguing with him about a variety of topics, as I'm sure you did too. But in my first conversation with him, and also in my last conversation with Don in the hospital, we talked about this thing, which is the reason that I love God. Even though I'm from Arkansas, I didn't grow up religious, and I didn't grow up as a Christian. I thought Christians were weird, and I was so uninterested in that, because I thought it was rule following. Be a good person, go to church all the time, do this, don't do that, and it was so boring and not at all what I was aspiring after. But then I realized about 15 years ago that actually God is so different from this caricature that I had painted about Him in our mind, and actually God created me and us to only be satisfied in this intimate relationship with Him. And that although we can't see Him, we can actually have this real relationship with this God who's invisible in this life. And I think it was around 15 years ago when a friend of mine was talking with me about this, and I was pretty skeptical at the time. But some of my friends were were different from the rest of us in my crazy fraternity in college, and so loving and so full of light. And so I just remember praying one night. I was just like, hey God, it was this prayer. I was like, I don't even know if you're real, but if you're the reason that these friends are different, if you're the reason that they love me and that they have joy and hope, then reveal yourself to me. I guess I'll surrender to you if you're real. Help me to know, reveal yourself to me. And he did. And one of the reasons that he convinced me that he's real is because I all of a sudden had the void that was in my life that I was trying to fill through success and everything under the sun. None of that worked, but the void was finally filled when I began this relationship with Jesus. And I'm sharing that because what I want for anyone that I care about, anyone that I love, is to have hope that not only sustains you through hard times in this life, because they always come, but a hope that will also impact your life after this world. And I'll just close with this: that the reason I told Don that the reason I love God is because God isn't the God that I thought He was. God doesn't accept me if I'm good enough, or doesn't reject me on the days that I'm bad. He doesn't keep this track record and weigh my good deeds on a scale. And but instead He's so good. He's so wonderful and loving that Christmas is coming up, and the whole reason that Christmas exists, that God sent Jesus is because He knew that we weren't good enough, and so He sent Jesus to be perfect. And not only that, we celebrate Easter too because on the cross, and I know you've heard this story, but on the cross Jesus died, and He didn't just die to show an example to the world of what love is and what sacrifice is, but the scripture says that the reason He died on the cross was actually because He was going to take all of our imperfections and put that on Jesus, and Jesus was going to be punished in our place. And so my point is that God is a God of grace, and that He sent Jesus to be perfect because we were imperfect, and to die and be punished. Even though we were the imperfect ones who should receive punishment, but He died so that we could have life, so that we could have eternal life. So just by believing in Him, we can have life after this world, and it'll be life where actually there's no sadness, there's no more tears, there's no more strife and division and broken hearts, and it'll be wonderful. And then in our faith will be sight. We'll actually get to see God with our physical eyes. So I just want to share that. I know some of you go to church. I know some of you are probably like me and think Christians are so crazy. But I just wanted to share that because that's where I believe real hope lies. And I hope that you will remember these lessons that Don has taught me through his life and his death, and that they can be helpful in your life too. And yeah, if it's okay with you, I'll just say a short prayer and then close this time formally, and then I'm sure all of you have stories you can share and jokes to read and tell about Don. And so you're welcome to stay as long as you want and share those stories. I know Carrie would love that, appreciate that. But yeah, let me pray to close our time. Father, this is a day to celebrate, and it's also a day to grieve and to mourn. And we have a lot of love for Don and for Carolyn and for their family. And we ask that you would heal broken hearts, especially Don's closest, especially Carolyn and Don's family, closest friends. We pray that this would be a night where you bring into us. And I pray that we would remember the lessons that Don has like him and be selfless with our gifts and our strengths and give them a way to encourage and to strengthen others. I pray that you would help us to remember each day that our lives are so brief, and that we would live each day with the last day in mind, and that you would help us to see that you're real, so that our hope is in you, so that our hope is not in what we do and or what we haven't done or in ourselves, but our hope is just in what you've done for us and your promises, which are so awesome. So help all of us to better understand your grace and to live lives of love. In Jesus' name. Thank you all for coming.